The next day, Natalia told Frazier that they would be going home to eat after he picked her up from work that night. "And by home, I mean my parents' house," she clarified. "They've invited us over for dinner." Frazier's expression darkened. "They kicked us out of the house with nothing. Not even our dignity," he said. "Are you sure you want to share a meal with them? I bet James and Pearl told your parents about your new position. What if they just want to suck up to you and ask for money?" "I doubt that's the case," Natalia replied. "That was my home, and I lived there for over 20 years. They took you in when we got married. I didn't expect you to be so ungrateful. Maybe you really are useless." "I was just joking," he said hurriedly. "Of course, I'll be the first to comfort you if they kick us out again." "Whatever. I'll see you later." When they arrived at the Laplace residence that evening, they knocked on the door and walked in. "Mom, Dad," Natalia called. "Frazier and I are here." "Natalia!" Dorothy had been wrapping dumplings in the kitchen. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron and rushed to the entryway to greet them. "It's so good to see you," she gushed. Frazier handed her a basket full of fancy soaps and lotion. "Natalia and I picked this out for you," he said. Dorothy clicked her tongue. "Now, why are you bringing me a present?" she asked. "I'm your mother. I should be giving you a gift. I'll tell you what. Why don't you take the leftover dumplings home with you tonight?" "Okay," Frazier said. He wasn't eager to spend any more time with Dorothy than he had to, so he removed his shoes and went into the kitchen to see what he could do there. Dorothy guided Natalia to the couch, acting like the perfect loving mother. Houstus looked up from his newspaper. "Hi, honey," he said. James and Pearl smiled brightly at her. "Natalia, Mom was so upset when you left," James said. "She just couldn't stop thinking about you. We talked, and Pearl and I agreed that you should move back in. We wouldn't mind sharing our space at all." "That boy's just been begging me to have you come back," Dorothy said. "He was so worried that we had done you wrong." "That's right, Natalia," Pearl said brightly. "If you move back in, I'll have another woman my age to talk to." Natalia looked at them, uncertain. "This is my home," she thought. "It's only fitting that I live here. But despite how she's acting, I know Pearl doesn't like me very much." Frazier poked his head out of the kitchen, where he had been wrapping dumplings and listening to the conversation. "Actually, there's no need for us to move back," he said. "I've been house shopping recently." Everyone turned to him, shocked. James sat up straight, caught between wanting to lure his sister into a trap and putting Frazier in his place. "House shopping?" Natalia asked. "When did this happen?" "We can't afford a house yet," she thought. "We could barely afford to get our own apartment." "Natalia," Dorothy chastised. "Why didn't you tell us? Buying a house is big news." "Mom, I didn't know about it." "I was wondering why you hadn't moved back yet," James interrupted. "Turns out you made all sorts of money and planned to buy a big house. Why would you want to live in this crowded house? We're just your family, after all." "James, I didn't—" Natalia felt oppressed, but she couldn't clearly explain why. "Frazier, get out here right now," she called. When he walked into the living room, she demanded, "Tell me about your house shopping." "I thought it was the obvious choice," he said. "Living under someone else's roof is not a long-term plan. Since the day we got kicked out, I've been preparing to give you a home of your own." Natalia's heart skipped a beat, but she refused to soften her attitude. "What do you know about real estate around here?" she asked. "Do you know how expensive San Clemente's housing prices are? With our savings, we'd be lucky to afford a tiny apartment in the middle of the city." "Natalia, you're the CEO of Frandotech now," James said. You could afford a big house in the suburbs if you wanted it, and you'd still have plenty of money left over. Actually, why don't you buy me a house too while you're at it?" Natalia looked at her brother in disbelief. "I can't believe this leech," she thought. "He's trying to suck me dry already." Dorothy took Natalia's hand. "We're all pleased about your success, dear." She glanced sideways at Frazier. "Unlike some people, you've worked hard to be where you're at." Frazier ignored the jibe and smiled at his mother-in-law. "I have a new job too," he said. "Really?" James scoffed. "Doing what?" "I'm a security guard for my friend's company." "Security?" Pearl laughed. "And just how much do security guards make? And what kind of company could your friend possibly run? Maybe you'd better ask your wife for a job?" Frazier shrugged and walked back into the kitchen. Dorothy turned to Natalia. "Dear, your status has changed now," she said earnestly. "Since you're earning more money, maybe you should consider helping out your brother." Natalia sighed. "Oh, what do you want me to do this time, Mom?" "It's nothing, Natalia," James said. "Not with your new salary. Just buy me a nice 2-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. And my car's not working. I could use a new one." "That's not too expensive for you now," Pearl said quickly. "James, that was a brand new car," Natalia said. "How could it not be working?" "Oh, there was an accident," Pearl said indifferently. "A hit and run. We're still looking for whoever did it." "I can't believe this," Natalia thought. "I gave him an expensive car, and Pearl's acting like it was nothing." She looked at Dorothy with wide eyes. "Mom, are you actually going along with this?" "Natalia, with your new salary, this amount of money is nothing to you," Dorothy said. "With your brother's marriage, he needs to have a house and a car. These are essential for him to be happy." Hostess joined in. "Natalia, be sensible now. Your mother's made a good point." Natalia felt like she was going to collapse. Frasier was right, she thought. They didn't invite me back to try to mend fences. They only asked me to come over so they could take advantage of me. "Listen, all of you," she said. "Even if I wanted to help you, I don't have the money yet. I've only been in this position for 2 days. How quickly did you think I'd get paid anyway?" "That's no problem," James said. "Let's just sign a promissory note for now, and you can buy us a house next year." "A promissory note?" Natalia thought angrily. "They're acting like I owe them my new salary." "Frazier," she called, "quit fiddling around in the kitchen. We're leaving." "Okay." He hurried out, and his wife grabbed his arm. "Natalia, stop!" Dorothy called out, but the only response was the slamming of the door as her daughter stormed out of the house. Natalia was crying as she left the house. Frazier tried to hug her, but she shoved him away angrily. "It's all your fault," she said. "We've been married for 3 years, and what do we have to show for it? We have no house, no car, and my family still treats me like dirt. And what did you do while they were bullying me? You hid in the kitchen and did nothing. You're completely useless. Do you even love me?" She hailed a cab and got into it alone, leaving him to find his own way home. Frazier stood on the sidewalk and rubbed his face. "No, that's not true," he thought. "I wasn't just hiding in the kitchen. I was pouring extra salt into the dumplings. They're not going to enjoy their meal very much." Frazier heard a muffled curse from inside the house, and someone yelled, "Frazier, what did you do?" He hurried away. For the next several days, Natalia ignored her husband. She refused to speak to him even when they were eating at the same table. Sheila tried to joke around and return the atmosphere to normal, only to meet Natalia's glare. Finally, after Natalia had left for work one morning, Sheila confronted him. "Frazier, what did you do?" she asked. "You don't have many skills, but you sure know how to piss her off." "What should I do?" Frazier asked. She's been mad at me before, he thought, but her anger usually burns itself out like a wildfire. Her family really upset her, and I don't know how to fix this. "I have to go to work too," Sheila replied frostily. "I don't have time to solve your marital problems, but I'm sick of living like this. If you don't make up with Natalia tonight, I want you out of my house tomorrow. Do you hear me?" She laughed. Frazier thought for a moment and decided to call Lynn. Maybe Natalia's sister understands her better than I do, he thought. Lynn was studying, but she answered her brother-in-law's call. "Frazier, what's up?" "Your sister is really angry with me," he said. "I don't think she's ever been this upset, and I don't know how to make it up to her." Let me think. Well, she likes necklaces. Maybe you should visit a jewelry store and get her a new one." "Necklaces?" Frazier asked doubtfully. "I've never seen her wear one. She doesn't wear much jewelry, period. Are you sure?" "You idiot," Lynn giggled. "She's not home right now, is she? She has a little red box that she keeps hidden. Go look inside it." Frazier remembered seeing the box, but Natalia had explicitly told him not to touch her personal belongings, especially that box. I wonder what she keeps in there, he thought curiously. Still holding the phone, he slipped into Natalia's room and locked the door just to be safe. He opened the dresser drawer and found the red box without any effort. He clicked the latch and opened it. Inside the box were several exquisite necklaces, each containing various gemstones that sparkled in the sunlight. Lynn heard the latch click. "You see?" she asked. "She's not an earring or a bracelet person, but she loves necklaces. For some reason, she stopped wearing them after you two got married." Frazier ran his finger over the jewels as complicated emotions filled his heart. It's because of me that she quit wearing them, he thought. These necklaces are worth thousands of dollars, but I was poor when she married me. She didn't want to flaunt her jewels and hurt my feelings. "Thank you, Lynn," he said somberly. "I know what I need to do." He was about to hang up, but Lynn stopped him. "Hey," she said. "Bring me along. I know what she likes. I'll help you pick one out." He hesitated. If Lynn came along, his options would be limited. He'd be able to approach the jewelers more effectively if he didn't have to hide his ability to pay from his sister-in-law. "Come on," she continued. "I helped her pick out most of the jewelry she has. You don't want to mess up and get the wrong thing and make her even more upset, do you?" She has a point, he thought. "Fine," he said. "I'll come pick you up." He called a cab, and not long afterwards they were walking down the street of San Clemente's jewelry district. Lynn entered one particular store confidently, walked over to the counter, and started perusing the choices. Frazier followed her. When he glanced around, he noticed that most pieces were cheap costume jewelry. Lynn would never pick out something this cheap to make Natalia happy, would she? He thought. "This one," Lynn said, pointing to a necklace with a silver and jade pendant. You have a good eye, miss," the salesperson said as he came up to them. "That's from our newest collection, and it's a limited edition. Here, take a look." He opened the case and handed the necklace to them. "I'll even give you a deal on it. $700 and it's yours." $700? Frazier asked. "For just this one stone?" He scrutinized the necklace. It looks nice, he thought, but it's clearly not worth the money. This isn't really jade, and the chain looks like it's silver-plated instead of sterling." "Sir," the salesperson said, "clearly you don't have the eye that this young lady does. This piece is from one of our exclusive Italian designers. $700 is a bargain." Lynn giggled. "Don't worry," she whispered to Frazier. "I'll buy this necklace for you. Give it to my sister. She'll love it." Frazier looked at Lynn, surprised. She's still in school, he thought. How could she have that kind of money? She must have been saving her birthday and Christmas cash for a long time to have that much on hand. And she knows I don't have much, so she decided to help me out. No wonder she wanted to come along. Frazier was touched by his sister-in-law's gesture, but he wasn't going to let her spend her money. "I'm not sure about this one," he said as he handed the necklace back to the salesperson. "I want to keep looking around. Let's head upstairs." "But Frazier," Lynn whispered. But he shook his head, and she didn't finish her argument. The salesperson sensed his commission slipping away. "Do what you want," he said arrogantly. "But no one else is going to give you a deal like this. Good luck finding anything better for your special someone." He didn't speak loudly, but his voice carried. Other store patrons turned to look at them. "Hey, shut your mouth," Lynn said. Frazier just shook his head again and pulled her away. "Did you see that?" the salesperson said to no one in particular after Frazier and Lynn had left the room. "Even a $700 necklace was too expensive for him. Was I wrong to tell him off?" Lynn had tried to tell Frazier that the more expensive jewelry was kept on the store's upper floor. "It's so that when people come down the stairs with their big jewelry boxes, other people can look at them enviously," she thought. "It's kind of like showing off your gown on the red carpet." Frazier and Lynn entered the room on the top floor. "Are you crazy?" she hissed at him under her breath. "Even the cheapest stuff here is way more than we can afford." "It's fine," he said. "I just want to look around." Lynn didn't say anything else. She had never even dared go up there before then. She gaped at the expensive pieces made with 24-karat gold and pure gemstones. Even though she was gawking like a tourist, the shop's patrons ignored her. It was fine for a pretty student like her to dream about someday owning something of that quality, but it was obvious she wasn't going to buy anything that day. A commotion at the back of the store caught their attention. Frazier and Lynn turned to see a man wearing a tuxedo and holding a microphone. He was standing in front of 3 square curtains. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" he called. "We're having a special mystery gift event today. Behind these curtains are rings, necklaces, and bracelets. Each piece is one of a kind and worth at least $1 million. The only catch is that you have to buy them before you can see them. Who wants to try their luck?" "Is this a scam?" asked one of the people in the crowd as soon as the salesperson stopped talking. "Only an idiot would buy something so expensive without seeing it," said another. No one dared to bid. Nobody was brave enough to spend money on a necklace they couldn't guarantee was genuine. Frazier looked at the curtain closely, convinced that if he looked hard enough, he might see through it. He hadn't yet seen the perfect necklace for Natalia. Furthermore, Lynn wanted him to buy a cheap one for her in the first floor. But he wasn't worried about the price. He simply wanted to find the perfect one. "Are you interested, sir?" asked the salesperson. "You've been looking at that curtain for a long time." Everyone looked at Frazier, intrigued to see what he would do. But he had been looking at the curtain so intently that he hadn't heard. Lynn pulled on his sleeve. Only then did he realize that the salesperson was talking to him. "Oh, yes, I'd like to buy No, I can't afford it," he replied. He had forgotten that Lynn was with him, and he couldn't afford for her to find out that he was actually a wealthy man. "Well, may I suggest you go back to the first floor and look at the more, affordable jewelry," replied the salesperson haughtily, regretting having approached him at all. He should have guessed from Frazier's casual clothing that he was a time waster. "I could have told you that he couldn't afford it," said one of the customers. "He was already shopping on the first floor." "I wish you had said something sooner," said the salesperson, as Frazier and Lynn walked off. "I've wasted enough time on him today." As Frazier and Lynn returned to the elevator, a middle-aged man approached them. "Why don't you come with me to the second floor?" he asked Lynn, looking at her up and down appreciatively. "I'll find you something pretty there." "Leave us alone," retorted Lynn, but she hid behind Frazier as she said it. She was making a habit of hiding behind him whenever she got in a spot of hot water. Each time he helped her, he went up in her estimation. It was the reason why she had offered to help him buy her sister a nice gift in the first place. "You're a feisty one," replied the man. "You're lucky to have a brother-in-law like him." Lynn blushed, glad that she was still hiding behind Frazier. Frazier had had enough of everyone crowding around him and Lynn and offering them their opinions he didn't want. He grabbed Lynn by the hand and walked to the elevator. As the door closed behind them, he turned and glared at the crowd, leaving them in no uncertain terms about how he felt. The crowd began to disperse, many of them muttering under their breath. "He's a strange guy," said one lady to her friend. "Yes, very rude," replied her friend, unsettled by the look he had given them all. As Frazier and Lynn left the store, he noticed she was trying to hold back tears. Although she could be quite rude to him at times, he genuinely liked his sister-in-law and hated it when anyone upset her. As he looked at her, he came to a decision. "Wait here a moment. I'll be right back," he said to her, as he turned around and went back into the store again. "Where are you going?" she asked nervously. "I left something in the store," he said to her from over his shoulder. "I was in too much of a rush to leave." Not having the patience to wait for the elevator, he quickly ran upstairs to the top floor. The salesperson noticed him as soon as he reached the top step. "So, you're back," he said. "Don't you learn? The merchandise you can afford is on the first floor." Many of the customers who had witnessed his departure were still there. They all turned to see him stride across the room. "I'll call a security guard if you come any closer," said the man, his confidence rapidly fading with every purposeful step Frazier took toward him. "You need to leave." Frazier walked straight past the salesperson and toward the middle-aged man who had been rude to Lynn as they left the store. Before the man could react, Frazier swung his fist at him. His fist landed square on the man's nose. Frazier heard an audible gasp from the other customers. They all stepped back, careful not to annoy him anymore. As he looked at the man holding his hands over his face, he smiled, pleased with his handiwork. He turned to the salesperson. "I'm going to buy it," he said, pulling his credit card out of his pocket. The salesperson looked at him, his mouth agape in shock. Yes, of course," he stammered. He scuttled off to the counter and looked for his card reader. Once he had found it, he took Frazier's card and put it into the machine. He paused. "Thank you, sir," he said quietly. "It's all gone through," he added, struggling to come to terms with the fact that he had totally underestimated the man. As he looked around the room, he noticed that the other customers were thinking much the same. "Please, follow me," he said, as he handed Frazier a receipt. They walked back to the curtain, which he opened flamboyantly. Behind it was a glass cabinet with a necklace inside. The necklace had a heart-shaped diamond with an enormous sapphire set into it. It glistened in the light. "This is the heart of the seas," said the salesperson proudly. "Is it real or fake?" asked a customer standing behind Frazier. Everyone held their breath. Even though everyone recognized the necklace, no one was brave enough to say it was a genuine article. It was too valuable a piece of jewelry to get wrong. Frazier took the necklace from the salesperson and stared at it intently, turning it over in his hands. "It's real," he roared. As a boy, an expert had taught him how to differentiate between real and imitation jewelry. It hadn't taken him long to realize that this was not fake. The crowd began to murmur suspiciously. The salesperson gestured for everyone to calm down. "It's not a forgery," he shouted. But no one was listening. Each and every one of them were kicking themselves that they hadn't been brave enough to take a risk and net something so valuable in return. The salesperson offered to gift wrap the necklace, but Frazier refused. Instead, he put it in his pocket and walked back down to the first floor. The salesperson he had first met was still there. "You're brave," she said. "You came back in after having been chased out." The salesperson who had served him on the upper floor had followed him down. "Don't be rude," he shouted to her. "Do you know what this man has in his pocket?" "What?" she asked. As the salesperson from the upper floor told her, she blushed. She couldn't believe she had been so rude to such a wealthy man. Frazier walked off, leaving the two salespeople arguing behind him. Lynn was still waiting at the door where he had left her. "Come on, let's go," he said to her as he walked outside. "What took you so long?" she asked him. "It took me longer than I expected to get some justice from that man who was so rude to you just now," he said. "The salesperson gave me this necklace as an apology." He took the necklace out of his pocket and showed it to her. "Wow, Frazier, it's beautiful," she said, looking at it in awe. "It must be really expensive." "No, it's a cheap imitation piece," he said, smiling at her. "Are you sure?" she asked. "It looks pretty real to me." Frazier glanced at the salesperson, who had followed him to the door. He winked at him. The salesperson noticed the wink and smiled. "Yes," he said. "It's just a small gift by way of apology." "That man has neither the fists, financial resources, nor the brain of an ordinary man," he thought, as he watched Frazier and Lynn walk off.
Hey guys, Frazier here. Listen to the full episode of Unraveling the Son-In-Law exclusively on Pocket FM app. Click the link in description to install the app now.